this week we saw some big news, another major transfer of some big names in the organized crime game from Mexico to the United States. I have the list of all 26 fugitives here, and I'm going to go over some of the most important ones, why I think they're significant, how this also ties into the U.S. finally now admitting that they're going to crack down on CJNG. And also what this means and what kind of reactions this is garnering from the cartels themselves, because this is somewhat of a game changer. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Borderland Dispatches, an Ironclad original with yours truly, Katarina Schultz. All right, let's get into it. So basically, the United States announced that it had taken into custody 26 fugitives from Mexico facing a range of federal and state criminal charges across the country. A lot of these included drug trafficking, hostage taking, kidnapping, firearm charges, human smuggling, money laundering, you name it. Really, anything that falls under that umbrella of organized crime and what we know to be as cartels or foreign terrorist organizations. All right, so let's start off with the major head honchos uh, that were transferred to the United States. I'll list their names and I'm going to give you a little bit of an explanation as to who they are. So the first guy, known as El Quini, Abigail Gonzalez Valencia, he was one of the leaders of Los Quinis, which is, of course, a major drug cartel responsible for trafficking multiple tons of cocaine from South America through Mexico into the US. They financed the founding and growth of the CJNG, which, of course, as we know, traffics hundreds of tons of cocaine, meth, and fentanyl into the US, and they are known to be one of the most violent, powerful, and expansionist cartels in Mexico and in Mexican cartel history. Now, the DOJ has stated that this is part of a focus on dismantling CJNG, and we've kind of been waiting for this because we've seen how the DOJ and, I mean, U.S. feds have really cracked down on the Sinaloa Cartel. I've done just so much coverage on this, but now we're shifting our focus to one of the cartels that I've kind of been saying has been overlooked, and it's allowed their growth to rapidly expand across the country. They even aligned with a faction of the Sinaloa Cartel, which of course would lead to them absorbing the power of that faction and having a stronghold in Sinaloa, meaning this cartel, CJNG, has essentially expanded and expanded their stronghold across all of the Mexican states. These guys right now are the top dogs. For a little bit of context, in June, um, the co-founder of Los Quinis, Jose Gonzalez Valencia from Michoacan, Mexico, was sentenced to 30 years in prison for his role in drug trafficking and trafficking conspiracy. Now, his brothers, Gerardo Gonzalez Valencia and Abigail Gonzalez Valencia of Los Quinis, they were named in these same court documents where Jose was sentenced for being the top financiers of this cartel, being part of the CJNG, and essentially being responsible for a large part of the drug trafficking. El Mencho, the leader of CJNG, is the brother-in-law of the Gonzalez Valencia brothers, and meaning these two groups have been very closely allied. This brings a lot of attention to them, and so the transfer of Abigail or Queenie is very significant in that it sends a message that even though CJNG has essentially managed to fly under the radar and continue with operations without so much of this law enforcement intervention that the Sinaloa cartel was seeing, this changed this week. Now, another individual who was part of this transfer was Kevin Gil Acosta and Martin Sasueta Perez. So, according to court documents, Acosta and Sasueta are leaders of the security apparatus for the Chapitos. As we know, we have seen that the DOJ doesn't just care about these kingpins who are running the operations, but they're also going for the very people responsible for keeping these capos safe, running their security, taking out hits, you name it. Now, both men have led Sicarios armed with military-style weapons such as AK-47s, M16s, AR-15s, and grenade launchers in attacks against the Mexican government and military officials. We've seen this time and time again, and it's important to note the usage of drones during these ambushes over the course of the last year. Unfortunately, the Mexican military has fallen victim to these types of ambush attacks where they are tipped off or leading an operation only to find that the location that they go to is essentially booby trapped and they're walking into a shit show where they're going to be attacked, and these cartel operatives are leading them there to kill them, to send a message that if law enforcement wants to go for them, they will die, and to kind of show that these cartels are one step ahead of anyone who's coming to get them. Now, Acosta leads Sicarios tasked with protecting fentanyl labs and distribution routes, while Sasueta provides personal security for the leaders of the Chapitos, so mainly for the brothers. Without these figures, and it's important to keep in mind the hierarchy of how these cartels operate, without these key figures who are leading security operations, whether that be protecting the kingpins, protecting the smuggling routes, and protecting the very labs where fentanyl is being produced or the routes where precursors are coming in, the operations would fall completely flat. And I typically find when I dig deeper into these individuals, the so-called security forces, they seem to be the most violent. They are the ones who will carry out very blatant violent attacks in the name of protecting the integrity and the respect of the name of whichever cartel they are working for and defending. It's quite scary considering the tactics that they're willing to implement.